four-way test is Jerry Martin.
Please join in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and one republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty and justice for all. Now the four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. Is it care, concern, is it real goodwill and other friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Thank you. Please be seated, everyone. If you look in the rear of our meeting room today, you're going to see one Charlie Kastner, who's been a member of this club for so long, since 1984, for 32 years. And that deserves a round of applause just for being a member of this club for 32 years. He's going to play a song for us today called Java. Go ahead, Charlie. Charlie Kastner, thank you so much. We're going to open up the mics in the middle of the aisle, and if you have any guests today, please, Rotarians, come introduce yourself and introduce your guests that are with us today. Do we have any guests? Here we go. Alice, hi.
Hi, Alice Bridges, and I have two guests today with me.
Thank you.
First of all, from Kentucky One Health, Healthy Communities, Annabelle Pike, who is manager of Healthy Communities, and Dr. Deborah Ballard, who is a integrative primary care physician with Kentucky One Health.
Welcome. Harriet.
Harriet Friedlander. My guest today is Paula Parkerson, who's not only a fabulous financial planner, but a prospective Rotarian.
Welcome, Paula. Hi, Debbie.
We have Wendell Jones. Oh, my name is Debbie Skidmore, and Wendell Jones is here today. He's visiting the What is Rotary table. He's an attorney in Louisville, and we're glad that he decided to join us.
Welcome. Hi, Craig Sherman.
Well, hi. It's my pleasure to introduce to you Linda Contarino. She's special to me because for those that come to the Chocolate Fest, they usually park in her yard. My neighbor.
So this is payback. Thank you to all the guests. As was mentioned, in the back of the room is our What is Rotary table, which I don't know, where is it? There it is. And Sydney Gates will be the host of the table afterwards. We'll have a very short presentation about the Rotary Club, all the good things we do, and you're going to hear about a few of the things we do today. And if you're interested in joining, we would love to have you. Rotarians, remember, we are looking for people that can invest their time, talent, and treasure with our club. Birthday table today. John Jennings. Who's today's birthday-ites?
President Gregg, we've got one official birthday this week, and that is Cheryl Kersey, president of Kersey & Kersey Architects. Please stand up. And then as well, we've got visiting Patricia Hart, whose birthday is actually next week. So we're going to celebrate it this week. Happy birthday to it.
Better late than never, right? Welcome and happy birthday. Thank you all. Next week, March 10th, is a special Rotary meeting. It's not going to be here. It's actually going to be at the Speed Museum. We have got an excellent opportunity. We're going to see the museum before it opens to the public. So all the fanfare and everything you hear next weekend, our meeting is actually going to be a couple days before. We're going to have a really short meeting, probably about 10 minutes, and then the museum is ours to explore. There's going to be docents everywhere, and it's going to be an incredible experience. So really excited next week. You have to RSVP, and actually Debbie tells me there is a waiting list now because we have 200 RSVPs. If you need to go, you need to call Debbie to be put on the waiting list because it's going to be that special event next week, March 10th. Let's do some shout outs, everyone. If you've not had a chance to see our new Sparks, I think we have a picture of it. It's been redone. Look at it. It looks really cool. It has a fresh new look to it. And thanks to Ingrid Hernandez for donating her time and energy and helping to revamp the Sparks newsletter. I think it's great. Gordon Brown was in Business First about his legacy of service with Home of the Innocents. I hope you saw that article. It was fantastic. The Southwest Dream Team had not one, but two Rotarians mentioned, Neville Blakemore and Julie Skotsky, about all the things that they're doing to work to change your mind and change their image in that area of town. Phil Shearer was mentioned in Louisville Magazine about his golf game with the first woman college golfer. It's a really entertaining article. And finally, in today's Women, we have not one, not two, but three Rotarians nominated for the most admired women in categories. Get online, vote for them. Alice Bridges, Cynthia Napek, and Ann Wells, all Rotarians, all nominated, and we're proud of that. Congratulations. Few announcements to make. Don't forget, well, today is the first Thursday of the month, so our Geek Table is going to be set up at the end of the meeting. If you've got any questions about posting pictures or getting on our website or anything technical in general, we're going to have experts back there, so please visit. We have had a lot of good response from that. Greg Heinzman, where's Greg? Hey, he's got some information, some updates about our Flint, Michigan project, one of the projects that we're working on this year. Go ahead.
Thank you, President Greg. I think everybody that's been here the last several meetings knows about our Flint Water Campaign, No Strings Attached, to help out the children of Flint, Michigan, where the water is contaminated with excessive amounts of lead in the public drinking water supply. About a month ago, we announced a goal to raise about $30,000. We're not quite there yet, but it's a unique program of donating shoes and then also making monetary donations. Over the last 3 weeks, the Rotary Club has participated, Rotary of Louisville, and we've collected about 200 pairs of shoes, which is great. It's a great start. To give you an idea how many we've collected so far, as of this week, we've collected about 27,000 pairs of shoes. Wow. We've already shipped off one trailer truck of shoes, and they keep coming in. So this has been a great community response. Also want to recognize the Louisville Rotary Club because the Louisville Rotary Club made a donation as well. The shoe donation has allowed WaterStep, I think folks know Mark Hogg, WaterStep has been able to make a donation of $8,000, and then through a whole host of other donations that have come in, we're right now at about $28,200. I just got an email, got another $250, so essentially we're up to $28,500. Our goal is $30,000. We're going to wrap this up on Monday. If anybody still has any shoes, just see me afterwards. We'd love to keep this program going, and then what we might think about is maybe do an annual shoe drive here at Rotary once a year and designate an appropriate organization to be able to donate the proceeds to. So that's an update. Thanks, everybody, for helping us out with this shoe drive.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Greg. Good job. I wanted to take a second to talk about one of our, we used to say 19 service projects. Now we actually, since we're doing the Flint, Michigan, we have 20 service projects. But this one, we had an update recently, and I wanted to bring everyone up to speed in El Salvador. So back in 2013, Rick Hardner was approached by the Rotary Club of Lake Placid because in San Salvador, their school, which has about 800 students, basically had almost no textbooks. I mean, the textbooks they had were falling apart, they were outdated, and so what they wanted to do was raise money, and they asked our club, and we decided we would do that. We, along with some other clubs, pooled some money together, along with the Lake Placid Club, which led the project, and then through some matching programs with the district and international, we managed to parlay that money and raised a total of $27,000, which in turn bought about 1,800 books. And in February 4th, those books were shipped, and there's a picture right now because that made the front page of the paper. This was big news down there. And so these 1,800 books will be used by these 800 students, the takeaway is amazing. I mean, this is part of, our club chances are none of us, or very few of us, will ever get a chance to go down there. But we've made a difference in their lives, and we've helped this school. And I thought it was fantastic. So let's give ourselves a round of applause. That's one of our small Rotary projects that we do. And the name of the school, by the way, was the Villa Chu Chi School. So I thought that was a nice little story. And thanks, Rick Hardin, for getting that off the ground. Speaking of which, since we're talking about what the fund does, this fundraiser we have actually is how we raise money to put into the fund so that we can do projects like Flint, Michigan. We can do projects like the book project in Salvador. So our fundraiser is March 15th. We really encourage everyone to go. We have got some great prizes, which are items to bid on, rather, including a trip to Africa. We've just got this week a cocktail party for 50 people at Nana Lampton's private condo. Ooh, that's kind of nice. If you've not been there, it's really nice. So she's donated that, so that's available. Private tour of the zoo. We've got basketball. We have tickets to events all over town. So it's going to be a fun event. It's an Irish-themed event. It's going to be at the Gramercy. We've got Irish food. We've got surprises. The band's going to play. So it's going to be a lot of fun. March 15th, please make an effort to come. Bring some friends. It's going to be a great time. And again, the money that we raise from this fundraiser is going to help grow the fund so that we can, in turn, make some difference in the world. So March 15th, please be there. Bob Belknap, hey, has got an announcement about another event this month.
President Greg, Bob Belknap, we are hosting a Bourbon and Braille, which is a free Rotary event at the American Printing House for the Blind, March 22nd, 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. It's going to be a great event. We're going to have a bourbon tasting sponsored by Heaven Hill Distilleries, Heavy Hors d'oeuvres, Cash Bar. So come out and see Stevie Wonder's piano, Helen Keller's Bible, and the only copy of Louis Braille's 1829 book on display in the world is at the American Printing House. We're going to give tours of the recording studio, the museum, manufacturing plant. Sign up on the Rotary website so that we'll know how many people will be there. And don't forget to decode your fortune cookie. They're at your tables. These were made by the blind children of the California School for the Blind. So it was
Everybody
a fundraiser.
should have a fortune cookie.
Everybody should have one.
One of them has like $100 in it, right?
It could be. See Ben Bromley for that one. Thanks.
I was joking. Thank you, Bob. It's going to be a fun event. I think we've got about 25 people already signed up, and it's free. It's a great event. So let me talk a little bit about our Service Above Self Award. We give this out every couple months to that Rotarian, and it's a surprise. We don't tell who it is. But that Rotarian who kind of goes above and beyond the call of duty. Is Ashley Brower here? Where's Ashley? I know she's here. Come on up. I feel like if the price is right, come on down, right? Ashley is really done a phenomenal job. Let me give you some background. She's joined the club in 2013. She's actually a product of the Fellows Program. Remember the Fellows Program? That's Baylor Landrum's program where we merge and we give scholarships to MBA students, and then we entice them to come to the club so they can learn about service and all the things we do. Well, it's worked. Here's a great example. Ashley has done a phenomenal job. What she does and what her team does every week before the meeting is puts together these press releases. And if you've ever seen the press release, you know, I mean, it's detailed on what the speaker is and who they are and where they're going to speak. And she sends them out to this massive television and radio stations, and then follows up after the meeting and gets together and gathers all the clips and gives them to Debbie so that she can make them available to us. It takes a lot of work, and she does it every single week. And it is phenomenal. We so appreciate all the work you've done. And as a token of our thanks, we have a little goodie bag, a little Rotary goodie bag, and our Service Above Self Award for this month. So let's have a round of applause for Ashley. Thank you so much. Thank you for all you do. Thank you. And now it's time for the main event. To introduce our speaker today is next year's president, Alice Bridges. Alice?
Thank you so much. It's a privilege to introduce today's speaker. Building a safe and healthy community where all citizens thrive is a very tall order, but our distinguished speaker today has spent his 20-year career doing just that. Anthony Smith is the executive director of Cities United, a national initiative of mayors focused on eliminating violence in American cities related to African American men and boys. Before joining Cities United, Anthony led Mayor Fisher's Office for Safe and Healthy Neighborhoods, where he solidified his reputation for creating positive outcomes with a special focus on young black men and boys. In fact, I've had the opportunity to work closely with Anthony in creating a new initiative called Pivot to Peace that I believe will be one of the most important new tools to interrupt the cycle of violence in our community. This program will link young adults who seek treatment for gunshot or knife injury from violence at University of Louisville Hospital, which is the region's only level 1 trauma center, and connect them with a caseworker, someone from their community who will work with them for up to a year after their injury and help them to pivot to a positive life path. Among his many achievements, Anthony helped secure Louisville's selection as one of only 5 sites that were added to the Department of Justice's National Forum on Youth Violence Prevention, a federal initiative focused on reclaiming the streets and our schools from violence and revitalizing communities. His work has generated more than $10 million in public and private investments in Louisville, and the creation of One Love Louisville, our city's strategic blueprint for safe and healthy neighborhoods. In November of last year, Anthony's talent for bringing together elected officials, residents, and business leaders to develop novel solutions and prevention strategies earned him the opportunity to lead Cities United, their first executive director, and to advocate for safer communities on a national stage. As Mayor Fisher put it, now the entire country will get to see the superstar we have here in Louisville. Please join me in welcoming Louisville native Anthony Smith.
So good evening, or good afternoon. I'm kind of trying to figure out what time of the day it is, but thank you all. Really excited to be here. I want to thank you, Alice, for the invite and for her leadership and her consistent leadership. And when she talked about Pivot to Peace, she didn't tell you all it took us 2 years to get that thing up and running, and many, many partnerships, changes. And that's just what this is all about, is really trying to stay committed to a vision and to a process to say we can be different. So again, I just want to thank you all for allowing me to come and hang out and get to spend some time with you all. I want to thank you all for your commitment and leadership in this city, especially to our young people. I was online looking at all of the great things that you all do, from the scholarship to the blessings in the backpack, all of the things that you support that says to our young people, we want you to do better, we know you can do better, and we got your back, and we love you and support you, even for kids that you don't know. And I think that's a huge thing that we need to do more of. Before I actually get into what I want to talk about today, I want to just take a little time and say, I know you all have been paying attention to this political cycle. We had a rally here in our city on Tuesday. And I don't know about you all. I don't care which way you lean, who you're voting for, but what took place in that rally should be something that we're all upset about and that we're all concerned about. Nobody should put their hands on our kids. There was a 17-year-old kid that was assaulted. There was a young lady who was pushed. And I can understand differences. We can have political differences, but there's a way for us to have discourse. And if we don't stand up as a community and say that's wrong, then it would continue to happen. So I just want to put that out. And people in this room, have the influence and the power to make that happen and make it change. So I just want to thank you all for your leadership, but then also challenge you all a little bit. When those kind of things happen in our city that we all disagree with, we all need to stand up and say, not in our city. We can't just leave it up to the mayor. We can't just leave it up to the folks who are the advocates. It's all of our jobs. So thank you. So as Alice said in that great introduction, and I don't know when I'm going to get comfortable with being introduced and then also being in front of rooms like this, because I've been doing it forever. But it's just one of those things that you get to do when you do work that you're passionate about, that you find your purpose in life. And I actually found my purpose in life about 20 years ago and have been working at it at different levels and at different angles. So I am fortunate enough and blessed enough to get to run a national organization called Cities United. Cities United was started in 2011 by Mayor Nutter from Philadelphia, who is no longer the mayor there anymore, and then Mayor Landrews from New Orleans, and then Dr. William Bell, who's the CEO and president of an organization called the Casey Family Programs out of Seattle. They came together and they had this conversation and really started thinking about every day we lose 14 young men between the ages of 10 and 24 to homicides. Every 24 hours. 14 young men are gunned down in our streets. And they started to say, what can we do different? And what can mayors do different to really start addressing this issue, right? So they came together, called on a number of mayors, sent out letters and said to mayors, join us in helping us figure out strategies to bring hope back into the lives of our young black men and boys. And it's a hard conversation to have, right? You've got mayors all across the country, different races, different backgrounds, different populations and people who they got to report to. But when we look at the data shows us that every 24 hours, 14 young men are gunned down in our streets, right? And I'm gonna bring it local to Louisville in just a minute. I just wanna talk about what I'm doing on a national level, but we will get to Louisville so you all can see that. So what they did is they start pulling folks together and really start thinking about mayors. What can you do from your seat to make a difference? You have the bully pulpit, right? So you can bring awareness to the issue. You have a budget that you help control and you help manage. You can reallocate those fundings. You can align it a little bit different to help you reach the young people who you're really trying to reach. You can also build a network of mayors across the country, and you all can talk about this issue on a national level with the federal folks to say, this is what we want to see our money go to. These are the differences that we want to see. So to date, we have about 76 mayors from all over this country who have signed on and said by 2025, we want to see a 50% reduction in the homicides of African-American men and boys, right? And we do that at Cities United. We support mayors by bringing in technical assistance. We've got a team of folks who we can send to your city to help you evaluate your plan, help you look at where you are, and then also help you fill in some of the gaps that you have in your plan. And then one of the things that we're actually moving to right now is we're moving to how do we create policy agendas so that we can push the federal government to start allocating funds a little bit different that help support the mayors as they build out these plans and as they build out these strategies to save these young men and boys' lives. And understand when we talk about young black men and boys, we are not talking about them in a vacuum. We know they have families, we know they have kids of their own, and we also know they live in communities that are diverse and that also want to see things different. So when you think about violence and the impact that it has on young black men and boys, also think about that impact that it has on the community as a whole, because we lose the possible next president of any of the organizations that you all work with when we lose these young men in the streets and they die. So Cities United is really about that. We are building a network of mayors. We bring them together once a year at annual convening. We've got our next convening coming up in May. We'll be in Birmingham, Alabama. And we're gonna be there. We're gonna really try to help the young people and the people who we bring to Alabama tie this kind of movements together. Right now, we're dealing with the Black Lives Matter. We're dealing with all these different issues of a lot of things that people are still saying. We thought we took care of some of that back in the 60s, right? But we're still dealing with some of these same issues. So we want young people to see the civil rights movement and compare it to what's going on today and try to tie those two together. So we will be bringing about 300 people together, mayors from all over the country, and really helping them have this conversation around what can we do different as a country to make this better for our young men and boys. So how did I get here, right? I'm gonna talk a little bit about who I am as a Louisvillian and then why this meant so much to me when we put this One Love Louisville campaign together. So, born and raised in Louisville, this is my hometown. This is where I'm gonna be for the rest of my life, while I also help people in other parts of the country. But grew up on 44th and Parker. Anybody know the Shawnee neighborhood? Golf course, Shawnee Golf Course was my playground in the wintertime, also my playground in the summertime. We would walk the links, pick up balls, wash them, and resell them to people. They knew what we were doing, so it was just part of the process. Shawnee Park is where I started my football. I played football at Shawnee Park for the Shawnee, I think it was the Indians at the time. We played football there. So when I grew up on 44th and Parker, I grew up in a community that was a diverse community. Portland was my backyard, so we hung out in Portland because I went to Portland Elementary and Western Middle School. By the time I hit the seventh grade, my mom remarried and moved us out to Westport Road and Chamberlain Lane, right? So I went from 44th and Parker. I had my aunt, my grandmother, and all of these folks who I knew there. Then we moved to Chamberlain Lane and Westport Road, right before the big Walmart there. There was a bunch of cows, right? So you go from a bus stop in an urban community to a bus stop in a suburban rural community where you're looking at cows and you're trying to figure out how does all this happen in one city, right? So I think the first time we rode out there, it actually felt like we were going out of town, right? Because it was that long ride on 71, get off, and there was just and I tell people all the time, it's like I had the best of both worlds, right? I know West Louisville well, and I know East Louisville well, and the differences are so vast, right? So when I turned 16, living in East Louisville, time to find a job, I found a job. My first job was at Chuck E. Cheese in the mall in St. Matthews, right? So if anybody does not know, but there was many opportunities for me to find employment. And I'm saying all this just to give you all a little bit of background of who I am. Dropped out of high school in the 12th grade. It was a weird situation, right? I turned 18 in the 12th grade. And towards the end of that year, the counselor and the vice principal pulls me in, and we have a conversation, and I don't remember the words, but it was more like, there's really no reason for you to come back, right? Because I didn't have enough credits, was not attending on the regular, right? I wasn't causing trouble, I was just not into school. I always knew I wanted to go to college, just never knew that I had to finish all this high school stuff to get there, right? But the journey is a part of the journey, right? So we do that. And I think because I was 18, there didn't have to be a conversation with my mom, right? It was, okay, you're 18, you're not progressing, why come back? So cool, I'm working, I'm at Chuck E. Cheese, I got more time to go work at Chuck E. Cheese, right? So at about 2021, an assistant management job opens at Chuck E. Cheese that I want. They said, well, you can't have it because you don't have a high school diploma. So I go take my GED, right? And back then, you can take a GED, you can take the GED, get it, and move on quickly. So I took it, got my GED in 1990, was in JCTC in 91, right? Still didn't have all the skills I needed to be in JCTC, which is why it took me 7 years to get my college degree, right? And people keep saying, are you going back and get your master's? And it took me 7 years to get my BA, so I'm good. I don't want to. I've got other ways to learn and grow, so I don't want to go back right now. But the question is, are you going back? So I ended up graduating from Northern Kentucky. I get a degree in political science and a minor in legal studies, all along thinking I'm going to law school, right? So I tell you all, just because I dropped out of school and kids drop out don't mean we still don't have a vision for our future. Sometimes we just don't know how to get there, right? And I think we've got to be okay with understanding that the traditional way of education does not work for everybody, and the system is not set up for everybody to succeed, so we always got to have alternatives. So graduate, first job is at child support, right? So I work at child support, and I work in the establishment, paternity establishment. So my job is to send you a letter, says you've been named as the father. Are you the father, or are you not? Either you say yes, we move on, or you say no, I schedule you for a paternity test. And I do all of this in partnership with a bunch of attorneys, right? And I'm watching what they do, and I'm like, nah, that's not what I want to do, right? That's not the job that I want to have. And that was the only kind of law that I saw, except for what was on TV at the time. So so my life changed, and this vision came, and it said to me, I want to go back and help young people who were in the same boat that I was in. Young people who are having a hard time figuring out this high school, transition to college, transition to work, whatever it is, there's a lot of them. Louisville has about 9,500 opportunity youth. It's a new term that they call them. These are young people who are 16 to 24, who are not in school and not working, right? We've got 9,500 in Louisville. Young people who are lost, young people who are trying to figure it out, and also young people who are raising our next generation of kids, right? So these are not young people who don't have families. They have families, but they don't know how to do that next thing. So I said, okay, I want to do that, right? So this vision came, didn't know how I was going to do it. So a job opened up at a program. I forget who was in office. It was I can't remember who it was, but it was a big grant that came out of federal grant. It was the Yogi Grant, Youth Opportunity Grants. They put all of this money out into cities. Louisville got a grant for about $35 million, where we were able to work with young people 14 to 21 for 5 years from what they called empowerment zones, which was most of West Louisville and a little bit of South Louisville, and then also Newburgh. And these were young people who we were helping to stay in school, and then those who dropped out get back in school, get their GED, and move on to whatever their productive life was going to be. And I started doing that as a recruiter, right? So back in the day when I started, I was about 28 going on 29. And we were out in community, like in our housing projects, which we don't have many more, right? We were in the communities really recruiting kids and bringing them in. And I found that was my passion, right? That was my purpose when I saw these young people come in, get these opportunities and move on, right? So to this day, I still get invited to house blessings. I get invited to graduations and marriages and all of this stuff, but I still got to go to funerals, right? We've got a young man, the last 35-year-old who was just shot on 35th and Broadway was a young man who was in that program with me, right? He was 35. He joined the program when he was in his 20s, but now he's gone, right? This was a great young man raising his own kid. He got a son who's in college, right? So when you think about when we lose people, what happens to those families afterwards, right? So all of that led me to One Love Louisville. So, right, you got a high school dropout figuring his way out in the world who lands the job at the mayor's office, right? So I was like, most of the jobs I've had since I left child support are jobs that were not there until it was time for me to go there, if that makes any sense, right? So this new office that Mayor Fisher created, and I think you were on the team of the folks he brought together, we had that terrible triple homicide, right, in 2012, where we had the young people, 2 young men shot each other, and then the young lady shot the other young lady at the scene while the media was there. Mayor put all these folks in and said, we need to do something different. We've got to think about how we do this, right? And it's not just what we're going to do different with our law enforcement because they have a role to play, but if that was what it took, we would have had this figured out by now, right? So it's not just law enforcement. So he put this team together, 37 people, and they all came together for 6 months. He gave them a timeline, so they worked quickly. And they put out a report in 2013 that said we need to figure out. They gave 42 recommendations. Top recommendation was create a new office and hire somebody to really manage this on the day-to-day. And when you watch the numbers from last year and this year, you would think, well, y'all failed, right? Y'all didn't do a good job, which is what I feel most of the time too, right? Because when you get those pages at night saying there was a homicide, this young man's dead on the street, you go to the scene, you see the body, and then you go to the funeral, you see the family. And you keep thinking, how do you change this? What is the difference going to be? So there's a lot of work to do. So, right, I carry this handkerchief for a couple of reasons. One, I know my head's going to sweat. And 2, this is such a passion for me. I might cry in the middle of it, so I'm always prepared. So the mayor had to make a tough decision, right? Because at the time, council was saying there's no money. People were questioning, why do you need this extra role? You already got a chief of police, you got a chief for public safety. Why would you need another role? And the mayor was real clear, I need somebody who's going to be able to come in, look at this from a systems approach and break down some of these silos that all of these folks are in. And I need somebody who can bring people together, do it under the vision and get everybody on board and on the page and moving forward. So I was chosen to do that. I started in May of 2013 and we got to work, right? So we took the recommendations that the folks gave us and we moved a lot of that, right? The pivot that Alice talked about was one of those recommendations, right? So that came out in 2012, 2013. They said, we looked at data across the country and this is a best practice that has evidence-based that works. St. Louis, if you go to St. Louis, they'll tell you that their hospital-based violence prevention program helped their homicide rates go down 28%. Right? They can tie it back to this one program. Until we started doing this, our numbers were not going down. So we came in, put together a team of folks, and took what they gave us as a foundation and built on that, right? So you had 37 people from all across the city come together and really put together these issues. They looked at education, they looked at health and wellness, they looked at employment, and they looked at community building, and then there was one more. It'll come to me, but I can't remember. I've moved on, so I can't remember. But it was a holistic approach to how we move forward. So we came in and we started pulling people together to say, okay, they gave us a great foundation, but there's some gaps, right? So one of the things you all got to understand in Louisville, when you look at the data historically, we lose 56 people a year to homicides, 86 people a year to suicides, and 121 people a year to drug overdose. Right, that was our average when we walked in the door, right? So when you go back and you look at it over these years, those were the numbers that we were dealing with, right? So we didn't want to just talk about homicides because that's important, but when you look at suicides and overdose, we're losing people consistently in this city to things that are preventable, right? If we just pay attention and really start reaching out, because if you think about it, and I don't know if this would meet your 4-way test, but in my mind, people are putting themselves in harm's way because they're disconnected, they don't feel a part of, and they don't feel like they got anybody to support them, right? You're not going to attempt suicide, you're not going to do drugs at that kind of level, and you're not going to put yourself in the way of a homicide if you feel like you're a part of something, right? Because don't let the news or the media get you kind of messed up with in Louisville. Most of the homicides that happen in Louisville are person to person. They know each other. There's not too many random people being shot. We lost a 16-month-old baby to kind of a random, but there's not much random homicides happening in Louisville, right? So you all can walk through West Louisville and probably nothing will happen to you. I say probably, you might get robbed, but you won't get shot and killed. But I don't know if that would happen, right? So I don't want you to go down there and say, well, Anthony said nothing's going to happen to me, because there's a possibility you can something can happen anywhere. So, but you won't be the next homicide victim. You won't be on the news, and your family won't be doing a visual for you and a prayer for you, because it's just not going to happen like that. So we got to a place where we got to One Love Louisville. Be the one that makes a difference. A guy designed this for us, and this vision for us has been what we are going to stick with and we're going to hold on to, because at the end of the day, we didn't get here overnight. You hear the mayor and everybody say this all the time, but it's true. Go back in the data, right? We've been losing young people at this level since the 70s, right? We might dip here and there, but it's been like this since the 70s. When I walked in to this job, we lost 65 people to homicides in 13, 48 people to homicides in 14, 65 and 15, in 14, I'm getting my numbers kind of messed up. 12, it was 65, 13, it was 48, 14, I can't remember all the numbers, but last year we ended with 81, and this year I don't know where we are, because I'm trying not to hold on to those numbers as much when I'm in town, because I think it's just one of those things that is just consistent over and over and over again. But just think, it's not a new thing that we're dealing with. Right, now the approach is different, right? Because what the mayor is saying now, let's do is from a public health lens, let's treat it as a disease, let's go into the root causes, let's go into the neighborhoods that are experiencing this the most and put our resources and time there, right? You don't have to have a whole citywide kind of approach to a problem that's not happening all over the city, right? So we want to go in and address where it's really taking place. And when we looked at our data, average age was 18 to 34. Black male was 68% of the victims. And when we caught the perpetrator, they were 68% of the perpetrator. So that's where we wanted to spend our time, right? So we really looked at data. It wasn't just we thought about it and we just said, okay, this is a black male thing. In Louisville, it is. So we want to focus there. We want to spend our time there. And when you look at it across the country, it is as well. So One Love Louisville's vision is to create a city of safe and healthy neighborhoods. And if somebody could just tell me when I need to wrap up, I'll move faster. I'm good? About 5 minutes? Okay. So to create a vision, a neighborhood, city of neighborhoods where all citizens feel secure, supported, and fully prepared for lifelong success, right? Whatever that means to families, because we can't keep defining what success is for folks, right? Because all of us are not going to college, right? When I work with young people who had aspirations to go to college, they would take the TABE assessment, which would test where you are. That TABE assessment told me they won't get to college anytime soon. But if we don't have real opportunities for them now, then we're going to have chaos, right? Think about Chicago right now. There's a new report that just came out in Chicago. 78% of the young men, black and brown boys in Chicago, 16 to 19, are not working and are not in school. 78%. Then go to 20 to 22-year-olds. 47% of them are not working and not in school. Almost one in two, right? And that's just Chicago did that, right? Where other cities are starting to do that data and look at it as well. Because if we get real about what we're looking at, just think about Louisville. In 2013, the Network Center for Community Change put a report out. And they looked at all 9 West Louisville neighborhoods. And when that report came out, Louisville had an unemployment rate of about 5.4. Right? And those 9 neighborhoods, average was between 16% unemployment rate to 32% unemployment rate. Right? So we walk around touting these numbers like it's good. It's good for the city as a whole, but we've got pockets that are not doing well. And if we don't have that hard conversation, then we're going to continue to deal with the issues that we're dealing with. So that was our plan. We came together. One Love Louisville was this kind of rallying cry. Everybody has a role to play. Everybody can be a part of it. So we wanted to make sure we were increasing civic activity and participation. We started out with a community report called One Love Louisville. And it came out, we brought together about 150 people, used what we had from the first report and said, fill in the gaps, right? So we brought 10 teams together, about 15 people on the team, and they developed this One Love Louisville plan that was released in 2015 that's going to be the guide for us for the next 3 to 4 years. So if you've not read it, please download it off their website and check it out. There's a lot of space for people to be involved and be engaged. And it's supported by a 13-member team, 13 goals and 42 initiatives. Bold stuff, right? So when we first released this, when we first showed this report to the mayor, he was like, this is a whole lot. Can we get this done? I said, Mayor, it's not ours, it's the community's report. We've got folks who have signed on. If you look at those 13 goals and 42 initiatives, some organization in your community has taken responsibility of that and said, we're going to do that and we're going to be the ones to help move that along. So it's not a city report, it's a community report. Government has a role to play, but all of us have a role to play as well. We also have a youth report that's coming out. It should be released hopefully the summer of this year. And this is a part of the National Forum. We were one of the last 5 cities to join. There's 15 cities, and it comes with resources, but it comes with a lot of resources from the federal government, but it also connects you to other cities who are all doing this work and trying to move forward. So to be a part of this was huge for us. Since we've been with it, I think we've gotten over about $350,000 from the federal government to help build out our work and support our work. They've got a group of young people. These 31 young people meet every month. They come together from all over Louisville. They meet every month on a Saturday, I think it's the 3rd Saturday, from 10 to 1. And they spend time looking at this stuff, giving us examples and giving us suggestions. One of the young men has been so engaged with it, he picked up the suicide prevention work that he's now talking to folks in JCPS about their suicide prevention. I don't know if you all know this, but every year in JCPS before April, they've got to talk to middle school and high school kids about suicide prevention. And they've got this video that they show and they've got this process that they do. And one of the things kids kept saying to us over and over again was, y'all keep showing us the same video. We're losing interest, right? And they also said, when we come back from school from summer break, those of us who get bullied are good because we've been away from a bully for so long. So you're catching us at the wrong time. So you need to do this before Christmas. You need to do this before we graduate so that we can check back in with us. Don't just do it one time a year. So these young people have been pushing JCPS to say, can we do this different? They also host a quarterly meeting, gathering that they just had last week where the mayor comes, people from the school board comes, different police chiefs, the police chief, and they just talk about what they're dealing with. So when you watch these young people and you see them do their thing, for us, youth voice was always important, so we had to have them at the table. People question all the time, do you have the right youth? Are they the ones the most impacted? And in my mind, any young people who want to be at the table is the right people, because they can get to the ones we really want quicker than I can, right? They go to school with them, they live on the same streets with them, they know the young people who are in harm's way. So we got that group. And the last one, the report that we put out, was really around, President Obama did this rallying cry around My Brother's Keepers, which was focused on young men of color, saying how do we help them have better outcomes. We aligned this with the mayor's Cradle to Career. If you guys have not seen that, that's his education plan to make sure all of our kids are having the best education outcomes as possible. And it also aligned with our vision. So there's 6 milestones. The first 5 deal with education from pre-K all the way through going to college and work. And the last one dealt with really around making sure that our young men and boys are safe and that they can return home from being in jail and move on with their lives. So we put that report out. But if you get these 3 plans and look at them, you'll see how they all tie back together and how they're all connected. And they all are connected to the mayor's bigger vision, which he's got these 21 goals that's up on his website that we all look at and that we all work off of, that then all aligns back with the work that we all do. So one of the things, and when I was coming, because I don't work there anymore, I reached out to the team and said, what do you all need me to make sure that they hear and that they understand? Right? One, we have been pushing mentorship hard because it matters, right? Mentors matter. We want folks to the point where Mayor Fisher created a new policy where every Metro employee whose job allows has 2 hours a week to go mentor a kid, right? They got to go sign up through their supervisor. They get 2 hours a week. We want them to spend an hour with the kid, and then they also get an hour for travel. So they got a half an hour both ways. We picked 4 places we wanted them to go. The Right Turn program, which works with 16 and 19-year-olds who have some involvement with the court system, who need some help getting a job. YMCA, Big Brothers Big Sisters, and then Everyone Reads. And the YMCA Safe Place has this cool mentoring program where they work with young kids who have parents who are incarcerated. Because if you have one parent who's incarcerated, your likelihood of being incarcerated goes up 50%. Right? So we want to make sure that you surround these kids with some positive mentors and role models outside of their family to help them think about things. Working is important. I talked about the unemployment rate and the numbers. If you all have any opportunities where young people can come and work for you, please be intentional and targeted about who you bring in and how you bring them in. There's a lot of young kids in West Louisville who are looking for opportunities, and South Louisville, looking for opportunities who just don't get them. And it's just because of where they live, the zip code that they were born into, and who they're connected to, right? They don't know this kind of network, right? Their families don't know these kind of networks. So when the mayor calls for summer works, right, it costs $2,500 to support a kid working 8 weeks over the summer, right? The mayor's goal is to get 2,500 young people working this summer, right? We need help with that. We need you to either hire one in, or we need you to open up a space or just write a check and donate it so that the mayor can then find somebody who would take them on. The Right Turn program I talked a little bit about, they need mentors, plus those young people need a job. The mayor just created this new program that we started this year called Reimage. It's working with young people between the ages of 18 and 24. We're targeting 2 neighborhoods, Shawnee and Russell. Those 2 neighborhoods had the highest number of shootings and homicides last year. These young folks have some kind of minor criminal record, but if they keep on that path, they'll commit a felony. So we're trying to pull them out of that cycle quickly and get them to work. Those would be the 2 that I would push if you all decide to do anything else. I know you guys got a busy plate. There's a lot of things that you're doing, all good work. But for me, until we get intentional about who we need to start reaching out to, we're going to continue to have these same issues. We'll do a lot of good work. We'll save a lot of lives, and we'll help a lot of people get to a different place. But there's always going to be this group of young people and their families who are on the outskirts, who we all seem okay with leaving them on the outskirts, right? And we've got to change that because every city I go into, you can probably pull the data and find the 500 most neediest families who have been in this cycle for a long time. And if we spend our time focusing there, we can probably have a better outcome. So for me, those would be the things locally for Louisville. I'm not asking anything for Cities United now, and I'm just excited to be here. But the folks at Louisville and the mayor's office really asked me to push these mentorship and then employment opportunities. So those are the things that I think could be very helpful in creating safe and healthy neighborhoods in Louisville for folks to have a better outcome. So that's my story. That's my time. And I thank you all for being here, and I thank you all for your leadership and your consistent showing up for young people, even for Flint, right? I mean, that's huge, right? And we just want to continue to that, so thank you all.
Thank you. Anthony, we're going to open up the mics for questions from Rotarians. Don't forget, Rotarians, please limit your questions, 30-second time limit and questions only, no statements or speeches. Harriet, you're up.
Hi, Harriet Friedlander. I have a question about the focus on, well, I guess there is a elimination or an overlooking of the part that alcoholism plays. I mean, you talk about drug addiction, but you don't talk about the kids that, get killed driving drunk. So I'm wondering if that's part of the initiative as well.
It is not. The way we started is that we started looking at this based on that triple homicide that we had in Louisville. So the focus came around that. So when we started the work, it really was around reducing homicides and making sure that was, then we added suicides and overdose, but we have not added, okay.
Thank you. I'm Rich Robinson. I'm a CPA, a bean counter. I don't know what I'm doing here, but this is a tough question.
Yes, sir.
And I want to phrase it correctly. There's so many kids growing up in single-parent families, and white and black, and I did not hear you mention anything in that regards. And unless we do something about that, is any of this really going to be effective in the long term?
So I believe yes. I think you can have a productive kid come out of a single-parent household, and I think. No, I hear you, but I'm just saying I think the question is how do we as a community provide the supports around those families that are needed? Now, I don't know how to, and I got this question from the council when I first presented to the council, because we talk about that's one of the things that determine a kid, right? Most kids that I visit in jail who are homicide victims grew up in a single-parent household, right? But I don't know how to change that. Only thing I know how to do is deal with what we have. We've got kids who are in crisis now. I can't make mom and dad get married. I can't push them to do that, but we can still support that kid. So I think you're 100% right, but I don't know what the answer to that unless we tell folks. I don't know what the answer to that is, right? So I don't see how you change that. So I just don't see how.
It wasn't even on your list of holistic approach. I guess that's the point.
Because it's not an approach that for me, it's not a realistic approach, just to be truthful to you, right? We've got families who are just who they are and what they are, and we can't go back and change that. Then we can start having a conversation around safe sex, which we've been doing for years. It hasn't changed. We can talk about why marriage matters. But if you don't see it as an option and you don't see it as viable, then it's not going to work, right? But then we also can talk about the number of divorce rates too, right? So I mean, all of these issues that we're dealing with, I don't think marriage I don't think being in a what we call a traditional family is the answer right now. That's just me.